If there is one thing that is evident, one thing that is for certain as a rideshare driver, whether driving for Uber or Lyft, it is that patience is key. What up, folks? Once again, it is your guy Tim with another ride sharing video. Patience is key because some of the shit they offer you just really makes you wonder, what the hell were they thinking? Who the hell drives for this shit? I want to run this one by you. This is what Lyft is offering in my market. I want to figure out from you folks, have any of you seen any decent driving incentives in your market? Now, I make it clear, I don't drive unless they're offering an incentive. Meaning streak bonuses, earnings guarantees, or if the market is in surge, I'll get out and drive. But I've said in every video, base fare ain't shit. I'm not going to get in a vehicle and drive folks around for 70 cents a mile. Some of you folks make even less than that. It's just not worth wasting my damn time. I'd rather be on a couch eating cereal, watching TV, than driving somebody, putting that wear and tear on my vehicle and risking my safety. You know, a lot of these folks out here are dumb as hell for 70 cents a mile. That's me. You let me know what you folks do. Now, I'm actually just completing a few trips after work. And in my market, during the rush hour, the evening rush hour, there's surge pricing for a couple hours. And I generally take trips in that time frame. I've stated before, I only go a very short distance to pick up passengers. Generally, 3 miles is about the max out travel to pick someone up, and it has to be at least $2 to $2.50 surge pricing. Anything less than that, and it just ain't worth it. That's my opinion. And certainly, the fact that Uber does not tell me where the hell a passenger is going before I pick them up also plays a big role in that, because if I drive, let's say we have $1 surge pricing, and I drive 3 or 4 miles to pick you up, I don't know where that person is going. And if that individual wants to travel 15, 20 miles, at that point, even at $1 surge, it's not worth it. The trips, the profit margin with Uber is so small that there's only so much shit you can do before you start losing money. So I generally feel if it's at least $2.50 surge, most of the trips are going to be worth my while. But when you start getting, like I said, in the $1.25 range for surge pricing, you can still get a hell of a lot of trips that are unprofitable. But this is what's being currently offered in my market from Lyft, because I used to drive with Lyft a lot. They haven't been offering shit lately. And this is what they're offering this week, which by the time you realize, I'm probably not going to be driving with them much this week either. This is a challenge. You know, challenge, how that works. You do a certain amount of rides, they'll give you a certain amount of money once you completed that number of rides. Here's what we got on the screen. They're offering a $95 challenge, a $60 challenge, and a $35 challenge. I want you folks to look at this and let me know if you would take any of these damn challenges, fill in any of these circles, or if you wouldn't do any of this shit at all. Now, we'll go from lowest to top, and we'll talk about it. Starting out at the bottom, you see they have a $35 challenge. I am a side hustle type guy. I don't do ride sharing anywhere near full time. I generally give them an hour or two per day after work. So I can't do a bunch of rides in a couple hours per evening. So I'm only doing a max of probably 6 to 10 trips per evening. So $35 challenge, they give you like 4 days to do this shit. 20 rides and you'll get $35. That's how it works. Now, the first thing I generally do is divide the amount of money they're giving me in dollars by the number of trips. So 35 divided by 20 is less than $2 extra per trip. That ain't shit, because even if you add $2 to every trip you take with Lyft at base fare, most of them still are not going to be worth it. They just not. I mean, in my market, I think base fare is around $2, or the minimum fare you can get for a trip is like $2.50. It ain't worth putting somebody in the vehicle and driving them from point A to point B unless it's around the fucking block for $2.50. So in this case, if you add another $35 divided by 20 is probably another dollar and some change. In my opinion, for the most part, it still ain't worth my time. Certainly, if you got to drive any distance at all to go pick that person up, it's just not worth it if they only adding $1 and something per trip. But looking at the way they have it, you got to first do what? 10 trips, and they'll give you $15 if that's correct. And then you do another 10 trips and they'll add on the remaining $20 to make it a total of $35 for 20 trips. As I just clearly stated, doing 20 trips for $35 ain't fucking worth it at base fare. If there's something else added in your market like surge pricing or something like that, you happen to be in a streak bonus, then yeah, another dollar or something on top of a streak bonus may be worth it. But right now, it is solely base fare in my market. So 20 rides for $35 ain't even worth thinking about. Here's the next one, a $60 challenge. This time you're doing 5 additional rides. So they bumped up the amount you're bringing home by $15 for doing 5 extra rides. Yeah, a little bit better, but let's break it down. If you do 20 rides, they'll give you the first $40. You see they got the little padlocks and shit next to it. So you do 20 rides, they'll give you $40. That's an additional $2 they're adding to each trip. Now, you know, I just stated, in my opinion, adding an extra $2 to a base fare Lyft trip still was not that great. But for you folks who do it full time and you're struggling to try to make a little bit extra money, you're starting to get in the ballpark. Adding an extra $2 to every trip you do, at least in this case for the first 25. Some of you folks are struggling or you really trying to get your hands on some money seriously enough to maybe take this on. Like I said, I don't think it's worth it. But 40, you get 20 trips out the way, you make $40, and then you do the remaining 5 trips and you make $20. Now, if they had a challenge where, see the bottom here where you do 5 trips, you get $20, I would do that all day. If they just simply had a challenge where you do 5 trips and they'll give you an extra $20, that's adding $4 on to each trip. Now we're talking about some shit. That's actually worth it. But in this case, you got to do the first 20 first to even get to that. I'm not engaging in that. Last but not least, $95 extra dollars. All right, we're talking about a little bit of money now. You know, take care of a tank or 2 of gas. You know, now we're talking about you might be to pay your phone bill or some shit off with that. $95. But look what you got to do for the $95. 30 rides to get the $95. That actually is much better than the previous 2 challenges. You're talking 95 divided by 3. That's over $3 added on to each trip. Certainly if I'm doing full-time rideshare, and I would take this. If I'm struggling enough where I'm trying to make a little bit of extra money and they're going to give me $3 extra on every base fare trip I do, now I'm looking more like this may have some promise to it. But still, you need to cherry pick your ass off. If you're doing short trips and Lyft is adding $3 to it, they're worth it all day long. But if you're taking somebody 20 miles and Lyft adds $3 more on to what you earned, that shit still is probably not worth it. In ride sharing, the big secret that everybody knows that have been driving for any length of time, the best, for the most part, best not kept secret is the longer the trip, the less profitable it is. If you are a rideshare driver and you're driving particularly for base fare, you should be avoiding long trips like the plague. The longer the trip, the less profitable it is. And at some point, it becomes a loss to you. Certainly if you got to drive back after dropping somebody off with nobody in the car. So flat out, if you're a rideshare driver, that's the best not kept secret. Every driver knows that. The longer the trip, the less profitable it is. So avoid long trips. But like I said, you're adding $3 per trip in this case. So any trip that's under probably 5 miles, where passengers in your vehicle for 5 miles, is probably going to be worthwhile, particularly to those who are doing full-time ride sharing. Now, because of the sheer number of rides, yours truly, I'm only doing a couple hours after work every day. it's hard for me to be certain I'm going to do 30 rides in 3 or 4 days. Because like I said, I may only be out for an hour or two. And generally when I'm out taking trips, there's a lot of declines coming from yours truly. There's just too many trips that ain't worth doing this shit. So I'm constantly declining trips. My acceptance rate is shit. It's like, I think 6%, 8%. So, I mean, out of every 100 trips they send me, I'm taking like 5 to 8 of them. That's how bad it is. Now, in this case, they want you to do 25 trips and then you'll unlock the first $65. That part, in my opinion, is not really worth it. 25 trips, so you're talking $2 and something extra per trip. So you do 25 trips, they'll give you $65. So they're adding 65 divided by 25 is 2 point something. So they're adding roughly $2 and something on to every trip you do. For a part-timer, doing it as a side hustle, an extra $2 added on the Lyft trips at base fare, as I pointed out with the other challenges, that does not make it worth it. But at the end, just like in the $60 challenge, the money comes into play. You're doing 5 trips, those remaining 5 trips, they're going to add $30 fucking on it. Now you're talking about for those remaining 5 trips, they're adding $6 on to every trip. That shit is worth it all day long. If Lyft would add $6 on to every trip, everybody would be damn near happy driving for rideshare. And that last $30 is great, but you got to do all that shit before it. So because you got to do that first 25 trips for folks like me, it disqualifies it. So what do you guys think? Are any of these worthwhile to you? Would you check one of these off? I've never done the challenges now that they've made it where you got to literally select one. I don't know how that works. I want to ask you folks in the comments, what if you check off the $60 challenge, but you actually complete the $35 challenge, but you had checked off the $60 challenge and something happened before the end of the week, so you couldn't do 25 rides, but you had done 20. Do they pay you the lesser challenge, or are you fucked? I don't know how this works, because you didn't used to have to select things. You just did it and got paid. It seems to me like they added this selection thing in there so that if you select the wrong thing, you don't make any money at all. Let me know in the comments, because I haven't seen this. Feel free to let me know if you've seen this and how does it work. And by the way, the obvious question is, would you do any of this shit? Do you think any of this is worthwhile? I'm thinking my full-timers would say yes, and my part-timers would be more hesitant. Anyhow, I just wanted to run it by you. Stay safe out there. Make a few bucks. It's your boy Tim. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.